I felt invincible before the bowl game happened. The safety came and just smoked me full speed right into the side of my knee, and it just bent at a 90-degree angle. And I laid there on the turf, and I was like, I knew I tore it. Immediately, I'm like, that cost me millions of dollars. It's kind of a depressing story, honestly. It's like I hear myself talking. I'm like, dang, man.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Welcome to Willing to Fail. I'm your host, Peyton Bennett. Today we got a very special guest. He was a two-time All-American tight end for the University of Michigan. He was also the John Mackey Award winner. He was a two-time Big Ten tight end of the year, two-time first-team All-Big Ten. He was also a tight end for the Denver Broncos. And now he is a college football analyst for Fox Sports and the Big Ten Network. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Jake Butt. How are you?
Doing great, man. Taking me down memory lane there, man. Jeez, good times playing. There's just nothing quite like it. And you know, my career was cut short. Injuries. I really am that guy. It's crazy. I tore my ACL 3 times. You know, when the guys are like, man, I would have made it big if I didn't tear my ACL. I did tear my ACL 3 times, and you know, still have that itch to be around the game of football. So I got lucky, man. I love what I do currently, and excited to kind of talk about the journey with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're finding a home that's still staying involved with football, because I remember watching you at Michigan. I mean, you were carrying it up there, dude. You had high expectations. I can only imagine the roller coaster of the adversity and the injuries, and we'll get into that, but no better place to start than the beginning. So where are you from? Like, what was your upbringing like? What were your parents like, and what got you into football?
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, so I grew up in the heart of Buckeye country. Lived on 5 acres on the outskirts of a suburb called Pickerington. So it was just me and my 2 brothers. And we weren't allowed to have video games, weren't allowed to really watch TV. So, you know, it's our childhood was full of sports, playing basketball, playing things in the backyard, inventing games. And I grew up actually playing soccer and basketball. So I'm very passionate about kids being multi-sport athletes. It's crazy that parents are like specializing their kids in youth sports these days. All the data says that's wrong. Even, you know, NFL draft rooms say they look for multi-sport athletes. So pretty much, man, I've just been a sports lover, sports participator my entire life. Dad was all about like hard work. He told me from a young age, like, he's not giving me any money to go to college, so figure out a way to get a scholarship. And you know, that I can, as I look back, man, I can see how I was shaped to be who I am today, like through some of my early childhood memories. So really grateful for that.
Is there something in the water in Ohio, or is that just a state of Ohio thing, like that tough guy, like no video games, like stay outside, figure it out, like I'm not giving you money for college? Is that just more particular to your family, or you think that's like a Ohio thing?
It's probably because there's like nothing to do in Ohio. So if you're not careful, like, you will just end up sitting in front of the TV playing video games all day. So I think that kind of drives most of it. But our hometown, and I grew up, you know, in a public school district. So private schools can recruit players. Public schools, you're just kind of at the mercy of whatever you have in town. And I was lucky, like my grade and the grade above me and the grade below me was full of high level talent, like a number of NFL players, a few NBA players, a bunch of successful female athletes. So it was something must have been in the water, because it was just a competitive sports town. And, you know, a small town like Pickerington, Ohio, that was kind of the pride of the town was our sports.
Yeah, I mean, you're a pretty big athletic guy. Is that mostly genes? Is your family pretty athletic, or are you just like the exception?
Yeah, my dad played rugby. I got a huge family. So, you know, soccer came natural to me. Competitive, like I was always competitive. So that always came natural. A lot of it, though, is, you know, it's a balance of hard work, too. Like, I sucked at basketball, and I remember getting laughed at. Like, I'd, you know, catch a rebound and shoot the ball over the backboard. I was really bad, and I got like a DVD on like Hakeem Olajuwon moves, and I'd watch that and then go in my backyard and just practice it. So one day it kind of clicked. And then it was the same for football. I mean, I was in like 5th, 6th grade, like cutting tennis balls in half and putting them on my palms to force me to, you know, I'd have my dad throw me so I could practice catching with my fingertips. Again, like there was just nothing else to do. So what we did after school was invent games, and those games were, you know, basically like drills that helped me become a better football player, basketball player, athlete, and it helps having two younger brothers too.
So when did you start focusing on football? Because I saw that, I mean, you put up crazy numbers at high school football, like 1,300 yards, 20 touchdowns, but then also 142 tackles and 20 sacks, 20 and a half
Yeah.
sacks. So
Yeah.
it seems like you were all over the field in football. And during high school, were you playing all these sports, or when did you start to specialize in football?
I never specialized in football. And yeah, I played both ways actually. So, I mean, in high school, I was playing football in the fall. I'd play basketball in the winter. And then in the spring, I would go to football lifting in the morning and play AAU basketball at night. And that kind of carried on through the summer. So I was real skinny coming out. I was in great shape though. I weighed like 215, 220 pounds when I got on campus at Michigan. So, a lot of that is because I was just burning calories by playing a ton of sports. I wasn't able to put on weight. But that helped me though. Like it helped me learn how to separate and decelerate, accelerate. It helped me become a good tight end. And then the weight came. Like, I mean, I graduated high school early. So I got in there like January of 2013 to the University of Michigan. And by August, by camp that year, I was 245 pounds. So like the weight came easy. Thankfully for me, I'd been working on my fundamentals and change of direction.
Yeah, I mean, you see so many tight ends that played basketball and how much that helps, like boxing out and all that stuff.
Yep.
Just ball skills. So I mean, dude, you grew up, like you said, in the heart of Buckeye Nation in Columbus, Ohio. What made you choose Michigan?
I mean, Ohio State didn't offer me a scholarship. I had scholarships from like pretty much, everywhere. And I think Ohio State was recruiting me as a defensive end. So I don't think that they didn't think I was big enough to be a defensive end. So it was like the perfect storm where, my first ever visit to Michigan was Notre Dame, Michigan, under the lights, 2011. Denard Robinson to Roy Roundtree, like record crowd, unbelievable environment. I was like, wow, this place is cool. I was at the Michigan State game later in the year where they won a last-second field goal. Then I was at the Ohio State game. So Michigan, that was their first win, sandwiched in between some streaks of losses in 2011. And I was like, damn, this place is really special. Michigan went on to go like 11-2. They won the Sugar Bowl. And what it was is they really wanted me. And I felt welcomed there. So I was like, this is the obvious choice. Like, I want to go be a football player for Michigan. And it was the best decision of my life.
Yeah, it seems like you made a good choice. So was there a little extra juice on your end when you're playing against Ohio State? Like, oh, these guys didn't even want me?
Yeah, oh, always, always. I mean, even my freshman year, another historic game, and we came up just short. We lost 42-41 on a last second 2-point conversion. But my freshman year, I was starting at that point. I was playing great. And Brady Hoke, our coach at the time, would come up to me during warm-ups all week in practice, and he'd whisper, he's like, remember, they didn't want you. Like, remember, they didn't think you were good enough. And I had like 5 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown as like an 18-year-old freshman in that game. And so that was always motivation. It's good to have a chip on your shoulder in football. Like, I use Tom Brady as like the ultimate extreme of this example, where we all say Tom Brady's the GOAT, doesn't need to prove anything. Tom Brady identifies as a 6th-round pick that was overlooked by every team. And it's good to carry that chip on your shoulder when you're out playing on the football field.
Yeah, the coach is reminding you that stuff at practice. You're like, I know, I remember.
Yeah, I loved it though, man. It's like, it helps to play football pissed off. Like, you kind of want to be in a state of fight or flight.
Yeah. I mean, dude, do you have the size? Like, seem like you had the athletic ability. Like, where do you think the confidence came from for you to go out and perform at 18 years old? Do you think that just came from your confidence in the work you were putting in, or was there like something that happened that gave you a boost of confidence?
Yeah, just like repetitions, honestly, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like I'm catching a ton of, I'm practicing jugs after our off-season lifts, and I'm working. I'm not just standing there. Like, intention matters. Like, a lot of guys catch jugs and they're just like casually doing it. Like, I wanted a perfect catch every single time. I was like hyper focused on the pinpoint of the spiral to make sure my hands were perfect. I'd have guys like push me and try to hold me, and I'd be strong at the point of attack. And then that translated to making plays in practice. And that translated to, my first ever touchdown was a huge touchdown on the road versus Northwestern, one-handed catch, and like the plays just kept coming and coming. And I realized eventually I was like, man, I can play with these guys. Like I can hang with these guys. So, as a freshman versus Ohio State, I was hoping for opportunity because I felt there was no reason I couldn't go out there and contribute to wins. And I was right. It's just we didn't end up winning ultimately at the end of the game.
So what was your main driving force? You talked about how like Brady had that chip on his shoulder, and for you, you have that chip on your shoulder against Ohio State. But like at some point, you're very successful. Like you've proven yourself as a great player. Like what's driving you to stay after and like watch every ball in your hand so perfectly? Is it the drive to be an NFL player, or just be the best now, or be the great college player? Like what motivated you?
Yeah, it really, most of it was just, one, I love football, and I loved the process and I loved competing. Like I couldn't think of anything else I'd rather be doing than going out and competing. Winning is really fun. Winning as an individual, winning as a team, like God, there's no greater feeling, than winning in the game of football. But another thing is like my whole life I was productive, and I always felt like I was overlooked because I wasn't a 4.5 40 guy. I couldn't jump 40 inches. I wasn't making like crazy athletic plays. Like I went to Nike, the opening, I think in like 2011, like it was an invite only camp. All the best high schoolers go out there. I ran like a 4.9 40, and one of the scouts like laughed at me. You walk around with a card and you write down your numbers, and I handed it to, and the guy laughed at me. And I was just like, like, screw you, bro. And the funny thing is, I ended up making the all tournament team. Like I was overlooked. I was drafted very late. I ended up being one of our best players, and it just pissed me off because I felt there's a ton of coaches that were real smug where they thought they were smart and thought they knew things. I knew who I was as a player, and I got joy out of thinking that they were wrong. Like I got joy out of making them sit there and say, "Damn, I was wrong on this guy," and that's just a satisfying feeling in its own way.
Yeah, that's a good way to stay motivated.
Yeah.
So I mean, looking back at your Michigan career, you talked about a couple like big moments at the beginning of your career. Like when you look back at it as a whole, like what are the emotions or what are like the big moments in your entire Michigan career that stand out the most to you?
Probably, winning the starting role my freshman year. The two guys ahead of me were sophomores. So, and one of them was a freshman All-American, and they both started as true freshmen. So here I am coming as a freshman, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to really, like, the first thought is, oh, these guys already started as freshmen and played well. How am I going to see the field? Like they're now sophomores, then they'll be juniors, then they'll be seniors. I was like, this is tough. So winning the starting role when guys got injured, and it was week 2 versus Notre Dame, one guy sprains his ankle, the other has cramps, and I go in there and I was prepared mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything, and I balled out. And eventually they moved one of the tight ends to wide receiver. That was great. And then a lot of them were, breaking the record at the University of Michigan. Like I think about the history of that program, and that's a big reason I chose it. One of the maybe the most historic and rich history and success of any program in college football. And there I was. I broke the career record for receptions and yards by a tight end. I'd look on the wall, and there's an All-American wall, and they break it up by one-time All-Americans, two-time, three-time All-Americans. And there's, to be an All-American's tough. There's a good, rows and rows of names. And then for two-time All-Americans, I want to say there's less than 20 in the history of Michigan. And I decided to come back for my senior year, and Coach Harbaugh would always tell me, hey, Jake, you know what's better than a one-time All-American? A two-time All-American. So to get my name there was great. To be voted captain by my teammates, that was above all things the top of the list. And then, the other piece of this is adversity. Like I tore my ACL my sophomore year. I overcame it. Then I tore it in the bowl game, overcame that. Then I tore it again my second year in the NFL, overcame that, retore my meniscus. So a lot of it was just like sheer willpower to like continue to stand up and go and go and go and go. And, I look back on it and I'm proud of the fight that I had to continue on.
Yeah, that's like that's a big part of your story is, your adversity, decided to come back the senior year, playing in the bowl game, like all that stuff. So was it the Coach Harbaugh in your year of being the two-time All-American? Was that the biggest thing that kept you to stay at Michigan your senior year? Were there other driving forces?
Yeah, the biggest one was not beating Ohio State. And I was like, I looked at our team and, in 2016, we had a special team, man. We had 11 guys after the season. So the 2017 draft, we had 11 guys get drafted and 17 make NFL rosters. And that was just from our graduating class. There was guys that the next year got drafted. We were loaded with talent. And I thought we had a chance to, really get back to part of the reason I came to Michigan is I wanted to win games. I wanted to be a part of that great history. Fortunately, we fell short, man. We didn't quite get it. So, and then, of course, I wanted to be voted captain. I thought I had a chance, and I did do that. I wanted to break the records, and I thought I had a chance, and I did do that. So, those, on an individual basis, those played a factor as well.
So before we get into your last injury in college, you said you tore your ACL like your sophomore year. What was like that process like dealing with that mentally? Was that your first big injury, or were you dealing with injuries in high school?
Yeah, I'd never been injured my whole life. So like part of this is identity, where I considered myself like trustworthy, that I would never be hurt, that on 3rd and 7, I was always going to catch the ball and move the chains. Like you could count on me. And I tore that Valentine's Day, 2014, got surgery February 27th, 2014. So they said I was going to redshirt that year. They're like, yeah, you're not going to play. And I was like, dude, no way. I was like, what's the quickest you can come back? And they're like, 6 months is what Adrian Peterson had just did it. They're like 6 months, but that, like, come on. I came back, I played in a game 6 months and 5 days later. And like, I never had any issues with my knee after that. Like it reaffirmed who I thought I was. I thought I was invincible, and I just shook off an ACL like it was nothing, and then went on to become a 2-time All-American after it. So, those last 2 years, I was like, I never get injured. I literally, I never didn't even wear a knee brace. So I felt invincible before the bowl game happened.
That makes sense. It's a funny way to put it, because a lot of people definitely have the opposite effect when they have those injuries. They think they realize they aren't invincible, but then you're just reaffirmed like, oh, I am. Like, just a little adversity, I can get back, be on the field. That's amazing.
For sure.
Which knee was that when you hurt the first time?
Right knee. And then
Right
the
knee,
bowl
okay.
game was also my right knee.
So, dude, I think a lot of people may not even know the connection, especially like a lot of younger kids. Like this whole trend of like sitting out of the bowl games, I feel like you're the big example of that to a lot of people. But at the time, like you said, you're still in this mindset that I'm invincible. You love Michigan. Like the thought probably never even crossed your mind to sit out that bowl game, right?
No, so Jalen Smith from Notre Dame he was the first one. So he got hurt the year prior, and he went from like a top 5, top 10 pick at linebacker to the Cowboys still took him pretty high, but like his career was probably cut short a little bit from dealing with the complications with that injury. And then that happened. And then my year, Christian McCaffrey sat out and Leonard Fournette sat out. And it was like unheard of for guys to sit out. And there was big debate on what was going to happen. And a couple of guys, my teammates were like, hey, are you going to sit out this game? And I'm like, what? Like, it never crossed my mind. You're exactly right. And it was just, when it happened, it was really just an unfortunate play. Like I didn't step wrong. Like I just spun off a guy and I stiff armed one guy. And as soon as I planted my cleat in the turf, the safety came and just smoked me full speed right into the side of my knee. And it just bent at a 90-degree angle. And I laid there on the turf and I was like, I'm not going to repeat what I said, but I was like, oh my God, like, wow, I can't believe, I knew I tore it. I knew that I was probably like, immediately I'm like, that cost me millions of dollars. Like I knew that I was going to slip in the draft. And then I also was like, holy cow, second ACL, this is a big deal. Like some people don't ever come back from their second ACL. So like, the breaking down of the identity in a sense kind of started to happen there at that moment.
And that's the same knees before?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always, dude, like you said, it's all the biggest thing is all the emotion and the realization of like what it costs to get your knee hurt. But for someone who's never torn their ACL, dude, how painful is that experience, emotion aside?
It really wasn't that painful to be like, it just happens. It's a loud snap, a loud pop, like an audibly loud pop. It is a tendon that gets snapped. But initially, like both times my leg went completely numb and it was just immobile. And then it swells up. Like it's literally like the size of this helmet behind me. Like my knee was massive. And I mean, it's dull pain and stuff like that, but I don't know. I've had worse pain for other injuries, I'd say.
Interesting. On a sidebar, dude, I was very impressed with how perfectly you pointed at your helmet. With your
I
thumb.
am too, honestly. That worked out better than I thought.
Okay, so then, I mean, you're like, I mean, dude, that's got to be a crazy emotional experience. Like, I mean, not only tearing your ACL, but I mean, that was your last college football game. There's already a ton of emotion for every player in that.
Yeah.
So, like, were you dealing with that emotion, like the day of the game and just those next couple of days after, like getting the doctor's exams? Were you still feeling invincible?
That game, so there's even a further backstory where like I got really sick. I had to get a tooth pulled like a week before the game, and it because it was so infected. And then I got like systematically sick from that infection. And the days leading up to the game, I was in the hospital with like 103-degree fever. I was messed up. Didn't practice, didn't even do the walkthrough like the day before the game. So I really could have sat out. You know, like a lot of people probably wouldn't have played because of how sick I was. But again, I still felt invincible, and I was just like, bro, I can play through anything, you know? I was having a good game too to start the game. I was playing decent. But then after that, no, I certainly didn't feel invincible. And I knew how long of a journey it was. And what helped me the first time around was the stability of being at Michigan. You know, I knew the trainers, I knew the program, I knew everything. Here I am now. I had to like go rehab across the country, and it just wasn't the best, you know, situation at all. So that added to the kind of the complications of everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you're not really at that moment. You're not part of a team. There's no one else in the trenches with you. It's just you and you.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
was it when was that bowl game? So it must have been in like January time.
New Year's Eve, I want to say, or 2 days before New Year's Eve, my 2016.
So, I mean, there's got to be a part of you, though, that's like, all right, I've come back in 6 months before. I'll be back in no time. I'll be ready for the NFL season. Like, what was their
Totally.
initial timeline they gave you? Was it kind of the same 8-month thing?
Yeah, they said really the second one was going to be 9 to 12 months. They said 6 months. And once I got drafted by Denver, I was like, man, can I play in camp? And they didn't say no, but they were really patient with me, and they're like, they were going to start me on like PUP, like physically on it's another form of IR. So they told me it wasn't going to happen. There wasn't much urgency, and they wanted me to heal. You know, they had drafted me, so they didn't want to rush anything, and that helped me. You know, of course I missed my whole rookie year, but I came back my second year. I was balling. I was playing good, and that was the best I'd ever felt, actually. So after I went through that whole season, the following OTAs, that was the best I'd ever felt at any point in my career. So I thought it was behind me again, you know, and you know, I remember, you know, there's each offensive coordinator, like they have their play sheet, you know, and on one side is their calls, like plays. On the back side of the sheet would be players. So like Emmanuel Sanders had his own section on the back side. We have 10 plays to get Emmanuel the ball. Demaryius Thomas, we have 10 plays to get Demaryius the ball. I had played so well, my name was there. It was us 3 guys only on the back. Like they had plays to get me the ball. So like I really was playing great freaking ball before the third one happened.
Yeah, I want to get into that. In the third one, but before we get to that, what was your draft process like? Because obviously, throughout your college career, you're a top pick. You get hurt, you realize that that's probably going to help make you fall to a later round. Like, what was your going through like meeting with teams process like? And then on draft day, was it disappointment? Was it excitement? Like, what was your emotional range for that?
Yeah, each team's unique. Like, you know, the Steelers, it's so clear why they're such a great organization. Like meeting with them at the combine, they were phenomenal. The Jaguars, I was like, this is why you guys are the Jaguars, man. Like they came in and some teams watch film with you. Some teams don't. Well, the Jaguars had like a low light tape of me, and they're rolling through, and they're like, it was all my worst plays. And they're like, yeah, we don't think you can play in the NFL. Like, we don't think you're very fast. And I just was like, well, then what am I doing here? Like, what did you just want to like shit on me, bro? Like, we have 15 minutes and you just literally want to dump? Like, does this make you feel good? I'm like, what am I doing here? Meanwhile, the Steelers, and some teams try to ask you like psychological questions. Meanwhile, the Steelers, I get into their room and Tomlin sits down in the front office and ownership is there. He's like, hey man, don't listen to any of these fools. He's like, don't let them play psychological games. He's like, they're gonna draft you off your film, like period. Teams are drafting you off your film and your film alone. We've seen your film. We think you're a good player. We just want to talk to you to see if you'd be a good fit in our culture. I was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. No wonder you've never had a losing season. Like, you're not wasting any time. So then the draft day, it sucked because I thought I had a chance to be. I don't think I would have been a first rounder because I wasn't going to test that well. But it was a historically deep, maybe the deepest tight end class of all time. O.J. Howard, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Gerald Everett. I'm missing a ton of guys. Like, but gosh, it was loaded. Jonnu Smith, and got names were just rattling, getting picked. And, I just kept slipping all the way to, what sucks is it's a 3-day process. So the first round is Thursday night. I knew I wasn't going to get picked. It comes and it goes. Second round is round 2 is round 3. I thought I had a chance to go round 3 and it came and it went. I just like went to bed that night. We had a bunch of family over. I didn't even say goodnight to them. I was just pissed off and I just went to bed. And then, I was supposed to be drafted very early. Like Mel Kiper had me as like the number 1 player available in the 4th round. And my agents were like, yeah, like you'll get drafted like immediately in the 4th round. I didn't get drafted till the first pick in the 5th round. Like another tight end got taken before me. So it was just a wild day. But once you get drafted, it's, who cares? Then it's just like focused on let's go play. And the Denver Broncos, they just won a Super Bowl a few years prior. John Elway called me. I was just ready to go.
That's exciting. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the anticipation and just the agonizing, like waiting days and days and the expectations. But yeah, I'm sure the call was exciting. Were you still with your family then, or did you not invite them over anymore?
Yeah, no, everyone stayed. That day was great, and I was with everybody, and it was awesome. It was a great kind of a family event too.
So then when you were drafted by the Broncos, they've already communicated the expectations to you, like they don't want you to play. They see you as a long-term player and they don't want to force you to come on the field, or are you trying to push to get on the field that first season? How does that conversation go?
They didn't say anything, but they just let it play out, and they didn't push really. Like, I thought I should be jogging and running based on the timeline I knew, but they were basically saying, hey, you did half of your rehab in California, you did half of it in Michigan, you did some of it in Ohio. Like, we don't know, like we have to spend 2 weeks getting to, rather than spending 2 weeks of like actually really trying to get me back to playing, they spent the first 2 weeks of like seeing where my knee was, which in hindsight was smart. But, you think about it, at that point, you're into May, and then all of a sudden it's June, and it's like, you're not going to just, work out for 3 weeks and then perform as a rookie in your NFL camp. So they didn't rush me really at all.
So how does that work for you, like just as a human being? Like you join a team, but you're not really playing. So it's like, how does it hurt or help like you trying to fit into the culture of the organization when you're not able to show what you're best at doing?
Yeah, dude, being injured sucks. Like, because you're part of the team, but you're not. Like, you have to sit in all the meetings and watch practice film, but like you're not, you're not getting coached up. You're just like sitting there, and it's just like long, like drawn out days. You have to come in early. Your days are even longer because you come in early for treatment before the day even starts, and then you stay late for treatment. And then the other piece is like you're getting paid, and at least I felt a little guilty because it's like I'm getting paid, but I'm not doing anything. It's like, it wasn't like enough, I'm like, what am I? It was a really profound realization to be like, oh, money alone really is not like it for a few weeks it's cool, but eventually you're like, I need some type of purpose. And I didn't have it, so that was probably one of the more profound realizations I had. I knew I needed something beyond just like numbers, in the bank account.
That's a cool realization to have in a shitty situation.
Yeah, it was productive.
So you sat out 2017, and then you see the field for the first time 2018. I mean, you even become a starter. Dude, what is the adrenaline rush when you finally get to put the uniform on and suit up for a real regular season NFL game?
Yeah, it was like almost like psychedelic, man. You know, it's just like, you know, you just think about, and it's NFL, so it's like it's your entire life's work. You know, first game, first catch, first, you know, we're playing Seattle, and it's like a 3rd and 10, and they're bringing pressure, and I'm matched up one-on-one with Shaheem Griffith, their tight end, or excuse me, their linebacker, the guy that was born without a hand. And I cooked them, and I was like, hell yeah, man, like I'm back, like this is what I do. 3rd and 10, move the chains, and we end up scoring on the drive. So it was awesome, you know. And I just, at that point, I'm not even wearing a knee brace, and I'm just like, it's behind me. I was cooking in practice. I was just playing great ball, man. I was just playing great ball once again. I just felt like myself, and thought I had a chance to, you know, it was just a few games. I'd play 3 games, but you know, if you projected out the season, I had a chance to break some of the rookie receiving records by a tight end, and then it happened, you know, 3rd one.
So, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I had Shaquem Griffin on the podcast too. He's a very, very high motor guy. So
good dude, but what an awesome story, man. Him and his brother, just those guys are freaking great.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, without his brother, like, to pick him up in those low moments of his life, yeah, they're an incredible story that we talked about forever. I mean, his brother's still balling.
Yep.
All right, so then you tear same ACL for the 3rd time. This is the right knee.
This was the left one. Yeah, this was the left one. We're playing, it was week 4. We had just lost to the Ravens week 3. And I had like 1 catch for 5 yards, and you know, the coach kind of pulled me to the side and be like, hey, like, you know, we got to get you the ball more. We got to let you, you know, affect the game. And so we're playing the Chiefs on Monday night, and they had me running. I thought if you just looked at the game plan, I was like, I'm going to have 100 yards. Like, I'm going to ball out in this game. Like, they were feeding me. And in my mind, honestly, I was like, man, I have a chance based on the game plan to outplay Travis Kelce on Monday Night Football, Broncos, Chiefs. Like, I'd be back for sure. And it's Thursday practice, and we're running down on scout team. We just warmed up. I'm running down on scout team kickoff. Just something I'd done 100 times. And it was a rainy day. The field was a little soft. Like, nothing even happened, man. I just like stepped to like work my move, and the ground gave way just a little bit underneath my cleat. Same sound, like bam, like tore my ACL. The guy that was supposed to be blocking me, he didn't even touch me. He was like frozen there. Like I remember looking at his face, like I didn't touch him. You know, I didn't touch him. And I've been even keel on my other 2 ACLs. Like I didn't really show very much emotion. I just accepted it. And then this one, it like freaking rocked me, man. Like I like didn't talk to people for a few days. Like, you know, obviously I was like crying, and I felt sorry for myself, which is like not a good place to be. Never want to feel sorry for yourself. Never want to, don't let people feel sorry for you either. You know what I mean? But I did. And that was like a dark place where instead of the previous 2, I went into it saying, I'm invincible, I can overcome. This one, I was like seeking comfort because I felt sorry for myself. And it's really interesting because you look at society as a whole today, and we collectively like are talking about like how we can make others feel comfortable and feel good about themselves, when my experience is make people feel capable. You know, I was comfortable, but I didn't feel ultimately capable. And I let thoughts creep into my head, like 3 ACLs, like 3 and you're done. You know, if you tear your ACL 3 times, that's the magic number. So more than anything, I had to overcome like the mental side of the injury. The physical stuff really isn't that bad. Like they fix these things these days. They're pretty routine, and guys come back all the time. The mental part was the hardest part, you know, to overcome that.
Did you start having doubts? I mean, it sounded like it, of maybe not even playing again.
I didn't, you know, that thought you wonder, you certainly wonder. And like part of it is like, even if you're healthy, it's the NFL. So I felt I needed to be at 100%. I had to be at my absolute best every single day to perform in the NFL. So I wondered if I'd, would I ever feel at my best again? So, um, I didn't know, but I was working my way back, and at 9 months this time, I felt the worst at 9 months compared to any other surgery prior. So that was tough for me, as I was like, I'm definitely not back yet, at that point in camp.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about what kind of complications came from it. Because obviously, I mean, dude, you're a veteran when it comes to recovering from ACLs. And
Yeah.
then, so you're tear your ACL early in the 2018 season, right?
Yep.
And then
Yep.
obviously you missed the rest of that season, but then you end up missing the whole next season too, right?
Yeah. So I got cleared. This is now 2019. I got cleared like mid-July, and let's just call it July 18th. Well, camp report date was July 19th. So I report. July 20th was our first practice, and I'm cleared and I'm playing, and I had a good practice, and I'm like, let's go. But after that day after practice, I couldn't walk. I was like, what the, my knee was so sore, and I knew something was wrong. We'll come to find out later, I tore my meniscus. But basically, we had the Hall of Fame game, so camp was 6 weeks instead of 4 weeks. Of those 6 weeks, I was unable to walk for probably 2 weeks, unable to jog for like another week and a half. And then randomly, for about 2 weeks, I was able to feel good. It was our last preseason game, and I had barely practiced, dude. And I just told the trainers, I was like, man, whatever happens, I don't care. Just, I want to practice this week and play this week. Just shoot me up and give me some Toradol, give me a chance to put something on tape. And we're traveling to play the Rams. And it was divine, man. That whole week I played great. That preseason game, I graded out at 100%. My blocking was on point. I routed dudes up, caught passes, moved the chains. I was like, whoa, this is freaking amazing. And I was so glad I put that on tape because I knew I'd have a chance. We get on the plane, we fly home, we land in Denver. I go to stand up, and this was the worst my knee had ever been. I don't even know what happened. There was no moment where I felt like I hurt it, and I couldn't walk again. And it turned out I'd retorn both the meniscus in my knee that was repaired when I tore my ACL. Missed the whole year again, bro. I honestly thought Denver was going to cut me. I was like, I would have cut me. I was like, I thought they should have just cut me, So I was just just put me out of my misery, man. Put me down here, and they kept me for the whole year. So they gave me a chance. They gave me a chance, and I ended up, staying with them, that off season as well.
So you're dealing with that pain, not being able to really walk for that whole season?
Well, then they cleaned me up. They did they did the meniscus surgery. They cleaned me up. I rehabbed for 6 to 8 weeks and came back, and they just ended up putting me on IR for the full year.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, dude, that's a long
another
mental
year
journey.
of just being on IR, and you're just like,
that's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
but you did end up bouncing back and ended up playing again in the following year, right? In 2020?
Yeah. So they had, again, they had drafted a tight end. They drafted tight ends pretty much every year. They signed some in free agency. So I went into that fourth year. They just probably looked at me like an insurance policy. Hey, maybe if Jake gets healthy and he looks like he did year 2, great. If not, they owed me no guaranteed money, all good. So I was literally 7th or 8th on the depth chart. That whole offseason, I was injured every single month, bro. It was not anything better. I was literally holy, and it was COVID, so we didn't have OTAs. I was sitting there thinking, I went into camp, and I reported for camp, and I had barely ran. So I just figured, let's just see what happens. Maybe somehow I can practice and maybe something good happens. But I had really no confidence that was going to be the case. That camp, I was the only tight end to not miss a practice. I played phenomenally. I climbed the depth chart and ended up winning our first round pick was the starting tight end, but I was basically the number 2. I was basically our second starting tight end. So I made the team. And then week 1, I just freaking crazy, bro. I dislocated both the knuckles, in my hand, these main knuckles, dislocate. My hand was so swollen. I think I probably tore some ligaments in there. So I couldn't, you can't block, you can't catch. I tried to play through it because I was just tired of being on IR. And then a few weeks later, tore my hamstring or pulled my hamstring, and missed the whole rest of the year. So it's kind of a depressing story, honestly. It's like I hear myself talking. I'm like, dang, man, I don't want to.
I
Our
wouldn't say it's a
viewers
depressing
like
story,
depress
but
you guys.
I'm sure there was some depressing parts for yourself, and I mean, it's a lot of adversity of like, I mean, dude, but it's still cool that you proved that, like, I mean, even after you tore your ACL 3 times, like, you're still finding a way back onto the like an NFL team, like playing in the game. Like that's
Yeah,
crazy, dude. There's a lot of people that would have given up at that point. So
yeah.
so then you tear your hamstring. You played that 5 years or 5 games, like a couple of years in the league. At that point, are you debating giving up, or you are like still like, no, I still got it. Like, let's just fix this hamstring and let's just keep going.
I didn't know. I mean, Denver decided not to re-sign me that offseason, and I had went through. So then I did some workouts for teams, and ultimately I got a camp tryout with the Bears for their OTAs, and they signed me. But like the whole offseason, again, like I was injured and just never healthy. And I went into camp with the Bears not healthy, and I reported for camp, and I just like I knew, man. I was like, I felt that it would be unfair to the tight end room, to the team, and to the organization to take a roster spot because, now it had felt like 3 years of just being injured, and I was just exhausted from it all. And I had no confidence at that point that I was going to be able to stay healthy for a season. So I pulled coach aside, and I thought like I was going to find it. I figured like at some point I'm going to find that love or find that spark. And I like kind of found the opposite where it was just like dread. And I wish it was different, man. Like I wish it was different. I had been able to find that spark and find that confidence, going on basically my whole career in the NFL, which was just filled with adversity. And with the Bears, it just like never came. And I told the coach, I was like, trust me, man, I don't want to say this. It's crazy that I'm saying this because I know me, but I was like, I have to retire. Like I can't, it's not fair to you guys or the rest of the tight ends to take this spot. Like,
Dang.
I can't play. And, they said, hey, you can have a few days. Why don't you take a few days to think about it? And I was like, I've been thinking about this for 3 years, bro. Like it's over for me. So had to make that call. Sad day.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's gotta be a tough. I mean, just a thing to verbalize out loud, a tough decision to come to. I mean, there's gotta be a lot of tough things with that. But I mean, dude, at the end of the day, I mean, you did live. It seems like a lot of your football dreams. Like you have an amazing college career. I mean, even with all the adversity, dude, you played longer in the NFL than a lot of other people do.
Yeah. I know. I mean, that's the positive of this. There's so many ways to look at it. Perspective is powerful. Perspective is everything. And for me, part of it is like when I retired and joining the Big Ten Network, I think about the timing of me getting into this career. The year I joined the Big Ten Network, their lead game analyst got into coaching. So I was able to become lead game analyst day one. And then the Big Ten Conference expands to USC and UCLA, and then eventually to Oregon and Washington. So that's like that news happened in year 2 and materialized now year 3. So you just think about the timing of it. It's like, I know I can do this career for the rest of my life. So I can look at this and say, woe is me, or I could say, wait a second, this actually worked out pretty darn well that I've been able to transition into this new career at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a ton of ways to spin it. I think there's a huge positive. Like, yeah, your knees and your knuckles may be a little messed up, but it seems like your head and your brain's all the way there. Like, no serious injuries in that. And I mean, dude, you seem great on camera. You seem great talking. And from what I've seen, there's like, dude, so your broadcasting, your analyst career could be 5 times longer than your playing career.
Yeah.
Like, so
I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal. It's and because of how like my playing career got taken away, then there's some hunger that remains to still go prove myself. Like, I wonder what it'd be like if I made $50 million. Like, would I be, in a sense that works against you because you don't need to do anything. Like my life would look completely different if that was the case. So at least like, it's the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves that kind of define our life. Like there's like the old story, like if there's 2 twin boys and their dad's an alcoholic and one of them decides that he's never going to drink because his dad's an alcoholic. Like, I'll never drink. But the other one says, well, my dad was an alcoholic. That's why I do drink. Though that's just two guys telling themselves a story based off the exact same experience, and look how different, life is for them. So that to me is like I'm can catch myself if I'm straying too far from the path. Like, get back and like be very clear about the story I choose to narrate my life as. I think that's something a lot of people could benefit from. I think a lot of people don't even consider how they're identifying with themselves. And for me, I've had a chance to look at both sides. And that's kind of the point of telling you about my ACLs. Like, I identified as a guy that overcame and was invincible until my third one, when I realized I was identifying as a guy that felt sorry for himself. I never changed. I just now get the chance and the perspective to be proactive about the stories I tell myself. That alone is a gift. Most people are doing it subconsciously without it ever crossing their minds. You know what I mean? Like Conor McGregor, he's a great example. You listen to that guy talk in 2013, 2014, before he became the world's biggest star. He said he would visualize every single day, visualize him being the double champ, like practice that. You have to like see it before it's even true. So, and of course you got to put the work in, but that perspective's everything.
100%. Yeah, I mean, dude, you said a lot of great things there. But I mean, yeah, dude, the university is part of your story. It's part of who made you who you are. And I think your story and your inspiration and the way you talk is going to help other kids that are going through the same thing. So last couple of questions I got for you is, so you're debating, like going through, you said you were thinking about contemplating retiring for 3 years. I mean, obviously that thought comes up when you're battling all those injuries. At what point did you really start thinking like, at some point, it doesn't matter, my NFL career is going to be over at some point. Like, what do I want to do next? And when did broadcasting and being an analyst become what you wanted to do?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I took kind of a year off. And honestly, the first year I was like, F football. Like, I didn't want anything to do with it. But I got invited onto a podcast by my buddy Isaiah Hole. And he's like, hey, why don't you, I do a podcast around Michigan. He said, why don't you come on and do a Michigan preview and a Michigan review with me twice a week? And I was like, okay, cool. And that was as I did like a self audit, I looked forward to it. It was the best time of my week every single week. And from that, I got opportunities like Sirius XM was like, why don't you join our show? I'm like, okay, cool. That went really well. That led to, opportunities. I go down to the Orange Bowl, the Big Ten Network's down there when Michigan's playing Georgia. Just so happens that's where it was the Orange Bowl that I played in when I tore my ACL. So I got to go down there. I got an opportunity with their social media team. They invited me on set for one segment. And from that, it just like piece by piece by piece, it was like literally perfectly, the path was just laid out step by step in front of me until, it just happened pretty much naturally that I was able to get this role.
That's pretty sick. I mean, for you personally, dude, that's gotta be a great feeling. Cause like you probably had the feeling for so many years of like, dude, things are just not going my way. Everything is just not going my way. And to have it kind of flip and be like, wow, these things are starting to fall into place. Like, this seems nice. So what are your like future goals or ambitions with the broadcasting career? And what else do you have going forward that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I just want to keep getting better. And I get the chance to call some awesome games and be in some great college environments. But man, would it be, the ultimate goal in my lifetime, I want to be in the booth for an Ohio State-Michigan game. Like Kirk Herbstreit went to Ohio State and he calls that game. I know I can be fair and balanced. Actually, like some of the biggest compliments I get are from Buckeye fans when I'm covering their team, ironically. Like it's funny how that freaking works. But that's my goal is to call, get in that position and be a lead broadcaster at a major network and call some of the biggest games. So just got to get there, man. Just got to get there.
Well, it seems like you have the work ethic and the personality for it, so I don't doubt that would happen. But
thanks.
Dude,
yeah,
congrats
totally,
on all your success.
Totally.
Looking forward to seeing you crush these next dreams ahead of you. What anything else you want to plug, or where can the people find you?
Yeah, man. The only thing I'll plug is I got a charity that I started last year called The Game Gives Back, and it's basically centered around the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, where you take the competitive spirit of college football, which is what makes college football special, and where we did it to raise money for the communities. Last year, we raised this came together in like 10 days. We raised $100,000 about $45,000 for Columbus, 45 for Michigan. It went to the Boys and Girls Club of Columbus and helped feed families around the holidays and provide basic necessities. For Michigan, we're doing the Mott's Children's Hospital. So now you think about those kids. The reason it came about is I just thought how lucky I was and we were to for the biggest stressor of our week to be if our team wins a football game. And I was like, that just didn't feel right. Let's take that energy and let's give back to the community. So it's on my social media. We just launched year 2. We're expanding to other rivalries. And our goal is to hit over $1 million raised this year, called The Game Gives Back. So people can follow my social media, and anyone that wants to help promote or get involved, we'd love to have you, and we'd love to take some donations as well.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. I'll post that as much as I can.
Thank you.
So
man.
how does it feed into the competitiveness? They just see like Ohio State donated this much, Michigan donated this much, and it's kind of like a battle.
Totally, yeah. I mean, there's a winner and a loser in this one too, and someone donated like $5,000 at we closed at midnight at 11:59 p.m. For Ohio State, so they squeaked out a victory. But it's more so, yeah. There's a blood drive, Ohio State, Michigan, so it's competitive in any sense, and it's also you're giving back by donating. You're giving back to your communities as well. So you're donating into the Columbus, district. You're donating to the Mott's Children's Hospital there in Ann Arbor. So it's a little bit of everything,
Dude, I love that. That's genius. Just bringing just competitive charities.
Yeah. It was special. So we're that 7-figure number is going to feel great.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Well, congrats on that. Congrats on all your success. Appreciate you coming on. For anyone, you can find Jake Butt on social media. And that's a show.